Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GCOR show. This may be a new voice introducing the show. It's usually Chikonaz, but I am interviewing Chikonaz today, so it's kind of the other way around of things. So, how you doing, Chick?
I'm good, man. I'm good. What about you, bro?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We had a pretty fun race yesterday. Drag racing to the line for second place. I barely edged you out, but that was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's 2 weeks in a row now that I've lost a photo finish, but I'll come back stronger. I'll come back stronger, man. Jeez, what a race though. That was a good race yesterday.
Yeah, I was very nervous. I was on like 5% ERS. It was close, but glad
Yeah.
to be back on the podium. And Chick, I'm sure for you, it's really big to be back on the podium, especially with how the team has maybe struggled a little bit for pace overall. Do you want to maybe touch on that?
Oh, mate. Yesterday, being back on the podium, it felt like I hadn't been on the podium for years when it was only like two races not being on the podium. But obviously, this year, um, with this is like the most competitive grid we've ever had in GCOR. This is the biggest grid we've ever had in GCOR. And it's great, obviously, not only from a neutral's perspective, but for GCR itself, it's great having so many drivers week in, week out, and so many quick drivers too. But yeah, we struggled a lot. I think our qualifying struggles have really been magnified this season. I mean, I think it was at Qatar, it was 4 tenths separating third and 10th, and we qualified P9. So definitely, every little tenth now really matters, makes that big difference. But I think qualifying that's the biggest struggle, qualifying and the lack of grip.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch because your quality pace, it seemed on and off, but really it seems like where you guys have struggled, at least with the second car. I mean, I think both of you have struggled, especially in Australia. It brought that to light, but it looked like your rear end was just not connecting to the racetrack, and it was really hard to get the power in it. So, do you think it was more of a thing of a new setup direction you guys decided to take over the off season, or do you think maybe it was a car change you guys made? I mean, what do you think it is?
I mean, I'll be real. Since we got into the F123 model last season, the car. I know this sounds crazy because the majority of the drivers on the grid feel like they've got more rear end grip, but me personally, I feel like I've got less rear end grip. I feel like the car is less predictable. Um, and I just can't really get on the power. Sometimes the rear end goes, sometimes it's even the front end. I mean, you saw when I crashed yesterday, when I binned it in the wall, it was a really weird incident. I mean, I'd taken the same line for, well, forever. I've always taken that same line, but for some reason the front just slipped. So we definitely got to do some investigations into that. Um, I think the rear end definitely, we need to analyze that, and maybe it's the setup, maybe it's just the way the car is. Um, but I'm sure we'll find something. I mean, we're always growing, we're always trying to improve, and myself and Matthew will find something.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on this. Your first podium, and some said it wasn't deserved, some didn't really care, but in Japan it was wet. And your car, I mean, you guys, I mean, I know there's a lot of incidents, but you did finish P3 on your side of the garage. I know Matt had a very tough weekend there, but
Mm.
you were able to in the wet with that car you've been struggling with manage to finish P3. So were you surprised? Looking back now, when we know more about how the Mercedes is, are you surprised by that result?
First and foremost, the short answer, yep, 100%. I mean, Japan, I wouldn't say it's one of our worst tracks, but it definitely isn't one of our best tracks. And obviously, we qualified ninth and 11th, myself 11th, Midget Matt ninth. Um, Obviously, you want to stay out of trouble, and that helped us quite a bit. Midway through the race, Walter, he made a double dive bomb, hit me, damaged my floor, which I struggled with for the rest of the race. But you know, great strategy decision by the team. We just kept on running. Honestly, I don't know how I managed to stay out that long on the intermediates. I mean, I think it was 25, 26 laps on the intermediates. I boxed onto the softs, and then yeah, just managed to overtake 5 cars in like 2 laps. So that was nice. Obviously, I'll take the podium, but we still know there's work to do.
Yeah, so obviously I want to talk about Australia because I feel like that's I know we slightly just touched on it not too long ago, but I feel like that's where the teams, and Australia is a really tough track. Like for me personally as a driver, I finished P3, but the last 2 races I've done there, I've had no confidence in the rear end. Even if my car does have the grip, I just have no confidence there. And it's been one of my worst tracks. Luckily, finally got a podium there this season. But I wanted to, because that track's really hard to get the grip down. Australia, it's super high speed. It's mainly a high speed circuit with curbs that are pretty big. And obviously, it brought your car's struggles to light. Matt struggled in the sprint and in the race, and then you obviously I think you got an injury during the race with that hard hit you took. Were you just pushing too hard, or what was going on there?
With the incident, we took the gamble to box early for hards because we had no pace. We came out behind Surf Absolot, also known as Little J Fam. Went for a move. I mean, I was totally entitled for the move. He was still there. Honestly, I don't know whose fault it was. I don't really care whose fault it was. I didn't bring it up to the stewards. But yeah, and then he hit me, lost control of the car, hit the wall. Obviously, that was a hard hit. I mean, I got a little bit of concussion. Obviously, the finger with that as well. And since then, I've been racing with a cast. So that doesn't help.
Impressive.
But
That's impressive.
yeah, it's all right. I mean, you'd have to kill me for me not to race, right? I mean,
Especially
but
since that performance in Jeddah. I mean, that track's very dangerous to be going, and to race there with an injury is pretty impressive. So, yeah.
yeah, I mean the corners because like Jeddah's such a physical track, and obviously the hot climate and everything. Like it was just so hard for me, but I soldiered on and almost beat you to P2.
Almost. Nah. Oh yeah, well that was a fun battle. Obviously, we've had a lot of great battles. Obviously, we've had our differences in the past, but I feel like we're mostly over those. But I do want to touch on your teammate Midget Matt. Obviously, a brand new ad for GN7 this season, and GN7, they would the kind of the thing with the second car is the driver would be there for about 2 seasons, and then we would get a new one. Obviously, Midget Matt seems more of a long-term project than the last drivers, but first off, are you excited about to see where Midget Matt can go in Mercedes? And just would you like to touch on the other drivers that have been in that second seat before, but just haven't been able to stay there?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Midget Matt. The reason we brought him was because we know his potential. We know how good he is, and we've clearly seen how good he is. I mean, in his first season, he finished third. Only myself and Dino Bambino beat him in the championship. Um, Second season was a little bit rough, but he still managed to get a podium. And obviously, I guess you could say without Matt, I wouldn't have won the championship because obviously Dino Bambino hit Matt and then he received that 5-second penalty. Um, and then last season, obviously, he missed half of the season. But when he did come back, I mean, he did a brilliant job. And remember his win at Portimao? That was obviously a famous race victory coming from nowhere. So
Oh,
definitely, we know how good Midget Matt is. We know, obviously, he knows how to lead a team, but he also knows how to play the number two role, like what he did for you last season. He was a brilliant teammate. It looked like he helped you a little bit, which is great. Obviously, it's good for you, but also shows how good of a team player Matt is as well. So yeah, we know how good Midget Matt is. Obviously, this season is very clear to see. It's been a tough start. A few factors. First of all, he's been very unfortunate. I think drivers have hit him. He's had his fair share of bad luck. The second thing, obviously, it's a new environment. This is the first ever time he's changed team. So he's still getting used to his, new surroundings, getting used to the car, obviously, and you know, the fact that this season the GCOR grid is better than ever. I think that also makes his struggles look a little bit worse than they are because Matt, his pace has been decent. He's not been. Where is he in the championship? Like 17th. He's not been the 17th quickest driver. He's been, I'd say, around 8th, around 9th. But he's been unfortunate. So we got faith in him. And to answer your second question about the other drivers, I mean Ollie Freeman, what a driver he is. He's, as you can see, he's second in the championship. You could argue that he's been the best driver this season. Um, and when he was at GN7, he was a brilliant number two to me. Obviously, looking back at it now, You know, it's crazy to think that Ollie Freeman was once upon a time a number two driver, and now he's second place in the standings. And I'm where am I? I'm like fifth. But yeah, he did a brilliant job. Obviously, got so much data, helped me win both, two championships, helped the team win two constructors championships. Ollie Freeman was, a great addition to the team. And looking even further back, guys like Genius Nature, brilliant teammates helped us win the constructor standings. And the GN7 way usually is there's me, and then there's another driver who is almost as good as me. If that, well, I think they're on my level, but obviously when you look at the points and everything, um, they're a little bit off. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. And I want to talk about obviously GN7 has a young driver program. They've had it for quite a bit now. Some drivers have stayed around, but some drivers just didn't get the opportunity to get a full time seat or whatnot. So, out of your young driver stable, obviously you have multiple. Who would you say you're the most excited for, and who do you think who would you like to see get a bigger opportunity next season? Do you think?
That's a good question. I think Skip Rat, obviously, he's the first name that comes to mind. He's been in our driver program for how many seasons? Like five or six seasons now. He's been there for a while. Skip Rat. He's been there since the Gen 2 Season 1 days. So definitely Skip Rat is like the obvious option. The number one option, I guess you could say. He's been in the seat full time once before, where he finished third in the standings. But obviously that was in Gen 2, you see. Now, obviously, as I said, competition's ramped up. I think Skip Rat this season's driving quite well. I mean, he finished P4 after starting P19 back in Japan. This weekend, he started, I think it was like P13, managed to finish P6. So another good drive. So definitely Skip Rat's up there. And then you've got a couple drivers like Dakota, obviously he races in another series now. So we're still, staying in touch. We're still seeing his progression. But definitely he'd be a shout as well. Honestly speaking, I think it'd be up to those two. We got to find a couple more drivers to add into the academy, and who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, so
Oh,
I wanted to touch
Gibbo.
on. Oh yeah, you were saying?
Gibbo. Sorry, I almost forgot about Gibbo as well. We recruited him quite recently into the academy. So, and he's done a brilliant job. Obviously, first race, first podium. So, yeah, we're still keeping an eye out on him. Yeah, I almost forgot Gibbo. Sorry about
Oh yeah, and I wanted to talk about Dakota for a second. So obviously Skipper at last season was given a plenty, like I mean honestly, even the season before, he's been given some opportunities in the main Mercedes, which I'm sure was really fun for him to get to drive a car like that and such a storied car. But I also want to talk about Dakota. He made one start for the team at Portimao, finished P6. So I want to talk about that. How hard is it for a team to get a new, because obviously they're the main reserve was Skip Rat. How hard is it for a team to get a third reserve driver in the seat and prepare him the week before? How hard is that?
that. I mean, the good thing is, the drivers usually they are, usually they stay quite warm. Let's say, they're always on their toes, always in the simulator back at the Junior 7 HQ. Obviously, some of them are actively racing, even if it's not for GN7. So, they know the track, they know the basics of how to drive, I guess you could say, which makes life so much easier. But then the hard part, you see, is getting the drivers familiar with their surroundings, getting the drivers to really open up about the car. And obviously, many of the drivers won't have really experienced having a teammate like myself. I like talking quite a bit over the radio. I like knowing a lot of their information as well as telling them my information. So they got to adapt to that as well. You see. Um, so yeah, it's quite tricky, but I think a week, that's all we need, and a driver can, we can make them feel at home.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you a bit of a fun question. Then I have a few more things on GN7. Then we'll maybe talk about GCOR as a whole. But I did want to talk to you first off. What's your favorite Mercedes car you've driven for GN7, and then also what's your favorite livery you've been able to drive in GN7?
My favorite GN7 car or my favorite GN7 Mercedes?
Both if you don't mind.
All right, so my favorite GN7 car has to be the Gen 2 Season 1 car. Back in the GT Sport days. I mean, Oh, that Porsche was so nice to drive. Like, okay, the first half of the season, we struggled a little bit because we had brake problems. I remember we struggled to get the car slow down. But after what was it like round 8, round 9, after we managed to get the new chassis in, after we learned how to control the brakes, I was flying. I mean, in 10 races, I managed to win 8 of them. So definitely that was, that has to be my favorite car. I even named it. I named it Sunshine. That car, that 911 was so good. My favorite Gen 7 Mercedes car has to probably be the Gen 3 Season 2 car, the one where I was fighting the championship with Dino Bambino, and Dino Bambino got the 5 second penalty. That car was, that has to be my favorite car because the season before I'd narrowly lost the championship to Dino, but the season after that, we had I guess you could say the killer's mentality. Every race we're going in there, every race we expected, a win, if not P2. And I mean, I ended up winning 5 races out of the 12 that season, which is a modern day record. So yeah, those two cars were nice. And in terms of livery, I think the black Mercedes is so nice. I can't lie. This season's livery, even though the car may not feel nice, it definitely looks beautiful, especially under the lights and the new side pods as well. So yeah, I'd have to say that.
All right, that's nice. And I also did want to, obviously at the end of last season, each team brought an updated car for the next season, and your car did add side pods. So, how did your car feel in that last Brazil race when the car was updated?
Um, I didn't really feel too much of a difference, and if anything, the car may have felt actually a little bit better. Um, in quali, I think I could have pushed the car a little bit harder in Brazil. If you remember well, I qualified P4 there,
Yeah, I
but
got pulled. I got
yeah,
pulled out.
you got pole that race, so definitely you had the upper hand, and I was on the back foot. But then in race trim, the car, I don't know, it just entered its own in the sprint race and in the main race as well. It's a little bit hard to say because obviously we were fighting Walter as well, and we just couldn't really run away from him and get clean air. But yeah, the car was all right last season. Final race of last season, no complaints. I mean, I ended up winning the championship just. Um, but yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, that was a heartbreaker for me, but we'll move on. So yeah, but I want to
Sorry
talk
to
about.
bring.
Oh yeah, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Sorry to bring that up, mate.
It's, whatever, Yeah. 2 points. Nah. Okay, I'll move on. So I want to talk about the future of GN7. Where do you see it? Maybe 2 to 3 to even 4 seasons from now. Where do you expect it to be, and who do you think will be? You think you have the same driver lineup, or things will change in that amount of time? I mean, what are you expecting?
That's a really good question. I mean, for the next couple of seasons, we definitely aim to retain one of the drivers, but whether it be myself or Midget Matt, I think obviously Midget Matt, I think his contract is a 1 year plus one, so let's say a 2 year contract. So don't be surprised to see Matt for another 2 years. Me on my half, I think we got to negotiate the terms. Um, whether I'll be here another season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, 4 seasons, it all depends really. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, so I'd like to be here, but I know if I can't be here, then it might be time to call it a day. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'm just focused on this season on developing the car, getting GN7 back to where they belong, winning races, winning championships, getting pole. I mean, I haven't got pole for like a season and a half now, so definitely the aim is trying to get GN7 back to where they belong first, and then we can begin to look at the future.
Yeah, and if you could, I mean, you say you would if you wouldn't drive for Merck, you would probably call it a day. But is there a team out there that you would drive for if you couldn't, drive for Merck?
That's a cheeky question. Um, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but I have had a couple of offers the last few seasons from other teams. I'm going to spill the beans now. Um,
Cool, cool.
Ferrari,
All
Ferrari,
right.
they want, you know, may or may not have come to me. McLaren as well. McLaren as well. They may or may not have approached me. But yeah, definitely. If there were to be any team that I go back to, it probably well, I'd race for. It'd probably be Ferrari, McLaren, or even Alfa Romeo. Obviously, I won my third championship at Alfa Romeo. I know it was back in the GT Sport days, but they're a nice little team. But Ferrari, I mean, everyone's a Ferrari fan. Ferrari. I mean, there's not really anything else to say about Ferrari, is there? They're just a beautiful team with beautiful fans, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to a dark day for you in GCOR. Obviously, you were in the thick of a championship battle with Dino Bambino, and obviously this day was really great for me, but it was horrible for you. So I want to talk about Coda. When you're fighting Dino Bambino, you got
Mm.
disqualified from the race when you're going to enter the pit lane. First off, what was going through your mind? Did you think everything was over? Were you, I mean, just emotionally drained? And also after the race, you had some interesting comments. So, how do you, looking back at that race and knowing that you have won the championship that year, how do you feel about that event?
I mean, at the time, definitely because I was leading the race. Let's not forget. Dino, he'd messed up his strategy. Well, he hadn't messed up the strategy, but obviously because of the safety car, it had messed up the strategy for him. So if I pitted, the worst, the lowest I was going to come out was P3, P4. But obviously, when you're in such a tight situation, and in a situation where every little tenth, every little position counts, I was so eager. So okay, I'll accept. I'll put my hands up. I overtook the safety car to go into the pits, but it was by the tiniest amount. That's the thing, and the stewards, the FIA didn't even give me, not even 3 seconds to
Why do
give
you
the
think that
position
it's?
back.
You
And
obviously feel that you're being
what
targeted.
frustrated me the most is that
Maybe it's because I'm black.
Nas, he did the
That's what
same
IG says.
thing as me. He was literally behind me, and he got away with it. Obviously, I could have, picked my words a little bit better. Instead of calling the FIA racist at the time. But but I guess we move on. I won the championship, so now I look back at it. Yeah, it was a race win squandered, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and yeah, that's what I've learned.
Well, good thing that was squandered because that was a beautiful day for me. As I picked up my first win that day in my home track, so that was exciting. But yeah, obviously, we just talked about this bad day, but what would you say is your worst overall time in a car? Whether it's that you got screwed over and you could have easily won, or a good result diminished by something stupid. I mean, what would you say was your darkest day in a car?
I've got quite a lot. I can't lie. If I had to pick one, I mean, definitely losing the championship to Dino Bambino in Interlagos Gen 3 Season 1. That definitely hurt. That'd be up there. Uh, Getting disqualified from Coda, definitely that's top three without doubt. The DNF at Australia, that hurt, both physically and mentally at
Oh yeah.
Australia. Um, um, and a couple of times actually, back in the Gen 2 days after Genius Nature, who was my teammate at the time, after he took me out. Those were pretty dark days, but I wouldn't say there's one which I'd say was the worst of the worst. But yeah, those were pretty dark days. But you know, at the end of the day, you can't really like you can't really continue thinking about those dark days if that makes sense. You just gotta take it on the chest and move on to the next race.
Oh yeah, no, I've had to do that a few times, and it's been. I feel you. It's difficult to first off barely lose a title, but also move on from those dark races. So I feel your pain, but I wanted to move
Yeah.
on to another thing. Obviously, when you won those championships in the GT Sport area, you had Coward as your race engineer, and obviously he raced a lot in GCR. He's pretty much an icon, but as of
Mm.
recent, he's kind of he would come back and promise all these things and then just kind of leave. So what's your opinion on all that? Because I'm sure it's hard for you because you had this guy planned out to do all these things for the server and the league and the series itself, but then
Mm.
it's just gone in an instant.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I always respect Coward in the fact that He's one of the reasons to why GCOR has grown to what it's been, what it is right now, to GCOR as we know it. He's made some sacrifices in the past, and I always respect that. Also, as you said, he was my race engineer back in the Gen 2 days, and even made a few showings back in Gen 3 Season 2. So I always respect him about that. That will never die. However, as you said, him coming and going, this and that. It's sad. It's sad. Yeah. I mean, he's a great guy, a great person. He's a great race driver. As you said, he's a GCOR icon. He's a future GCOR Hall of Fame. But yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, seeing him, come back, make a promise, only for him to break that promise and leave. It's especially without any reason as well. Remember, it was mid race. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
he'd been the car at Japan, and then he just left. So yeah, I
right in
mean,
front row seat to it.
yeah, you had the front row seat. So I mean, it's a tough topic to talk about, but
Yeah,
it's upsetting. It is what it is, I guess. It's his own life. He can do whatever he wants with that, but
of course. Yeah,
yeah, it's definitely hard to. As I said, I always respect him, but it's definitely hard to maintain that respect, if that makes sense, man. Because
yeah. Now,
you
yeah,
can't you
yeah.
can't
You
say
got
something and just leave, and he messed you up as well. Obviously, I'm sure you're happy at Haas, but he was the main reason why you came to Haas. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I mean I had a gut feeling not to do it, but we were teammates in the past, and I shouldn't have listened, but I was a little bit off probably where I was my thinking, and I took it, and obviously I missed my time. I mean, I don't dislike Haas. Charlie's been a great team owner. He's been a great teammate. I did receive an offer, but I decided to stay at Haas. Um, and with him, and
Mm,
sorry about all that noise. There's some testing going on behind me, but um, yeah, obviously, I still Alpine was my home, and had a great relationship with Matt, and we still have a great relationship. It's just I feel like I kind of got nothing. I don't know. I just feel like I went to House kind of for no reason, not necessarily because Charlie's again. I'll say he's been great, but it
mm,
was a Eve Alpine where I was trying to create a home in a sense, because I was
yeah,
kind of when I started at Ferrari, went to Williams, and Alpine, and I was trying to create a home, and then that kind of got disrupted. So yeah, it was frustrating because it's one race. You shouldn't after one race. I mean, we all have issues in one race, but we just come back the next weekend. We don't leave. We don't rage quit and leave the whole team. We come back
yeah.
and fight stronger. But yeah.
I mean, it was actually a half a lap, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. 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 Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And his AI
God.
still. Yeah. I mean, his I don't know what his team did. They might have put some other driver in it, but the car still finished 8th. I think they put the reserve in it because Coward just got up and left. But yeah, I think. But
Oh, I mean, if you don't laugh, you cry, man. If you don't laugh, you cry.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That sucked, but next season, I have no idea what the future holds for me. So, I mean, I like Charlie as a team. Obviously, he's my goat, but I have no idea what the
Yeah,
future holds for me. But whatever. We'll see when that time comes, of course.
yeah. We'll
But I
see.
did want to move on to another topic. Who would you say is your biggest, other than Beast Mode Sam 4, who is your biggest rival in GCR?
I thought this Sam. Yeah, you knew about that. You knew about
Oh yeah, I know
that.
everyone.
uh, I'd probably say Dino Bambino. I mean, you're up there. Obviously we had a terrific championship fight last season. Obviously, as you said, we had our ups and our downs, but generally it was a really good championship fight. Coward, I've fought for the championship. Well, halfway through before he's left the championship. We've had good fights here and there. But probably Dino Bambino, just because like our championship fights are so intense. Like if you look at the records, it's very there's almost nothing to separate us. I mean, when I won the championship, the only thing to separate us was amount of race wins. I had 5, he had 4. When he won the championship, I think the points gap was 12 points. However, if I had won at Interlagos, I would have actually won the championship itself. Um, so yeah, definitely we've had close title fights, but apart from beast mode, it'd be Dino. Yeah, definitely. I respect him though. We still talk. Me and Dino, we still talk. He's a cool guy. Obviously, team principal Ferrari. They're struggling this season, but I'm sure he'll figure something out. You know?
Oh yeah, and I want to talk. We'll move on to the future of GCOR in one second. I wanted to cover one more thing. You got to not too long ago. You got to reunite with your BWT Racing Point Championship winning car, and you did laps at Vietnam of all places. So how did that feel to get back in that car again? Because that thing was a monster, you know, and looked pretty nice, looked pretty quick. So I just, how'd that car feel to drive again?
Mate, that was definitely an emotional day for me. I mean, obviously that's the car I won my first championship in Gen 1 Season 1. Jeez, I feel old speaking about these old seasons, man, these old generations.
Oh
But
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it was definitely emotional. It was also around the track where I secured the championship with one race to go, you know? So it was just a nice feeling. The cars back then had so much grip.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it's
I was driving the
bro,
Aston Martin. They were great.
yeah,
I miss
bro,
those
the
cars.
cars back.
Honestly, I miss them. Yeah.
Yeah, like the cars back then had so much grip. It was crazy. Compared to now, like oh, mate, it's just so good. Um, yeah, there's not really much to say. I mean, it was an emotional time. Obviously, it was great seeing the fans, the Vietnamese fans, and obviously the donuts as well. They were a bit cheeky too, but yeah, that was a great experience.
Yeah, it seemed fun. What would you say is your overall favorite season you've raced in? Like, if you could go back to, and I would say do the, I mean, whatever you actually, whatever season you want. If you could go back, maybe like whatever, because the open wheel stuff for GCR is relatively new. If you could go back to any of the open wheel seasons and re-experience it, what would you say?
All right, so for open wheel, well for not open wheel, like GT Sport days, like the Gen 2 days,
Yeah.
definitely Gen 2 Season 1 when I won the championship in the Porsche, without a doubt. In the open wheel stuff, like Gen 3, um, probably Gen 3 Season 2. I mean, it was a close title fight with Dino Bambino. We gave it everything. But I feel like if if you could say I had a prime, that would be my prime, if that makes sense, because I don't know what got into me that season. I mean, I managed to get two poles. My last pole actually was at Monaco. Managed to win around Monaco, lap Dino Bambino and Sid Kofa, which was crazy. Um, and yeah, I mean, I just felt like I was the guy. I was unstoppable, and obviously the title. It came down to a little bit of controversy, but at the end of the day, what a season that was, and yeah, definitely, I'd love to go back to that season. A little bit stressful, but yeah, overall, it was a good season.
Yeah, it sounded like a good time. If I had to choose, I would probably say, I mean, our title fighting season was pretty fun, but honestly, probably the
Yeah,
most fun I've had is the season when I got my first win in. So that'd be 2 seasons ago. I mean, I love that Alpine. It was great. It had more grip. Because there was a regulation change. It had quite a bit of grip. The livery was, I like the livery probably the best at that point. I love the overalls we had at that point, and it was just a really big stepping stone season for me to where I am now. So I would probably say that one, but yeah, I would say yeah, I would say that one though. I was thinking maybe another one, but I think I would do that one. But I want to talk about now GCOR. Actually, I'll say one more thing about GN7. If you could
yeah.
if you say Matt, couldn't race hypothetically, and your young drivers couldn't race, if you could choose anyone from any other team, who would you choose to put in that seat? And they could be a second driver. It doesn't have to be like a number one versus number one fight.
Oh, all right. Who would fit the best? I mean, definitely you'd be on the shortlist, Hurricane. That goes
I want
without being
I
said.
want those Mercedes overalls, baby. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's not talk about that. Let's not speak about that. But yeah, definitely you'd be in the shortlist. I think Sid Kofa, he's been on the radar a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Ollie, obviously Ollie Freeman, he knows the team inside out. You know, he's been there for basically 3 seasons. He's been successful there. He's got his first win, his first podium there, and that's where he really established himself. So yeah, he'd definitely be on the short list. And then you'd have other guys such as Luigi as well. He'd
Oh
you
yeah.
know his pace this season's been crazy, and he's definitely going to be in this title fight. Me and him, we get along quite well.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah.
but if I had to choose one, I would probably say I'd go back to Ollie Freeman. I would go back to
Yeah.
Ollie Freeman. It's the easiest choice. It's the option with the lowest risk. He knows the team inside out. Um, okay, I think because obviously he's quicker now. So
Mm-hmm.
me and him obviously both be fighting to be number one driver within the team, which may cause a little bit of trouble. You know, maybe some Hamilton Rosberg vibes or Hamilton Alonso. But
Oh.
definitely, I think that would be the safest option. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. So now we will go to GCOR yeah, as it's yeah. Sorry, I just fumbled my words there. As itself, though, obviously we've seen the biggest grids we've ever seen in GCR. I mean, that must be a pretty proud moment for you yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I could only dream of the numbers that we're getting now. I mean, back in Gen 2 Season 2, some races, believe it or not, we were struggling to even get 3 drivers, man. Like,
Oh yeah.
oh, it was tough. I mean, I'm not complaining because I managed to win many of those races. You know, look at the stats. But yeah, nah. I mean, the grids that we're getting now is just crazy. I mean, 20 drivers at Japan was seeing that. I think a tear went down my face, man. It rolled from my eye because that's unheard of. It's got to the point now where we're able to run Q1, Q2, Q3, which
Mm.
is it's a dream come true, man. So definitely, and I think that's credit to everyone. That's credit to the drivers for having the motivation to turn up. And the thing is, it's not a fluke. I mean, this season the lowest attendance has been like 15 drivers or something, 15 or 14, which was obviously last time out at Saudi Arabia. Um, so obviously that's credit to the drivers. That's credit to the teams as well, having more money to so that they're more money to run the teams week in week out. Um, Credit to the advertising as well on Instagram, on YouTube. You know, the graphics, the posters, the advertising. I can't remember if I've said that or not already, but yeah, it's all of those. Just it's just helped GSWA grow so much, and hopefully, who knows? You know, we can get a second series going, maybe an F2 or something like that for less experienced drivers. Obviously, even though we've got a bigger grid now in GSWA, we still have a problem where some drivers who are inexperienced. I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to, publicly bait those drivers out. But some drivers, as you saw at Saudi Arabia, making silly errors, maybe overtaking under safety car,
Oh yeah.
um, hitting, yeah, those that type of stuff. Those
That's
type of
why I had to
drivers.
be, that's why I had to become a better qualifier. I used to be pretty bad at qualifying. Now I'm pretty good because I don't want to be back there. That's just the death sentence, pretty much.
That is, mate. When I was coming through the grid yesterday, oh, mate, it was scary. I can't lie. You've got to be so careful driving with some of these drivers. As I said, I'm not gonna name names, but it can be a bit scary sometimes. But
I
yeah, I
remember.
think it's
I remember Jetta last season with a certain GN7 rookie in the car. That was torture, but I won't call him out. But yeah.
one of the academy drivers. Well, he was an
Oh
academy
yeah.
driver.
But that's
Um,
not your fault. Yeah, chick. He was just trying to get experience, and you put him in the car, but obviously he wasn't fully ready. But whatever.
yeah,
But
I think a second series would have helped him a lot. But
yeah,
it is what it is. I mean, now that we've got the quantity, let's try and get a little bit more quality, if that makes sense. Just so that the racing can become better, racing can become cleaner, and everyone can have a good time, and ultimately provide a brilliant show for the fans too.
yeah, of course. And I want to talk about putting in full qualifying, and we also have increased red flags now. And we haven't seen much changes to the format of GCOR races. So, what was kind of your idea behind doing them now? Why is now the right time? And I know we have bigger grids, of course, but also for increased red flags, why was now the right time to implement these changes?
Yeah, I think it was at Australia, which which we had how many safety cars? I think it was like four or five, and I was like, I mean, I missed most of the Australia Grand Prix because obviously I DNF'd. I think that was like my first DNF in two years or something crazy like that. But I think when you have that many safety cars, you might as well just bring out a red flag, right? Might as well reset the grid. I know technically you could argue there's a higher chance of there being another safety car period right after that, with the grid being all together again. But we might as well try it. Might as well roll the dice, see what happens. Um, and in terms of the qualifying format, I think at Saudi Arabia, obviously we trialed it, the full qualifying, and I think it was a success. I mean, Q1, there wasn't really much point of running Q1. I'll be honest. I guess it was just familiarizing yourself with the track again, getting used to the car, getting used to your seat, learning about the track conditions a little bit more. But yeah, there wasn't really much point of even leaving the garage in Q1, which obviously will change hopefully with more drivers. But definitely provided a brilliant spectacle. Is that how you say it? I think spectacle
Yeah.
for the yeah, brilliant spectacle for the fans. And Q3 was interesting, because obviously the track evolution had ramped up and drivers were going faster than ever. I think
Oh yeah, I did
the
5 tenths better on my last run. I was 5 tenths out. You know,
510.
and I messed
Jeez.
up the first corner too. It was worse than the first time I did my first corner by about a tenth, and I still gained
Wow.
5 tenths back, like 5.5 actually. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a brilliant example to be fair. Jeez, 5 tenths is crazy though. I only managed to gain, I think it was 3 or 4 tenths. But
That's still
yeah, I
pretty good.
mean,
That still up you quite a few positions.
yeah, I mean, I started P6. I was 1/10 off P4, so we're slowly getting there. We're slowly getting there as a team. But
Yeah,
yeah, Q1, Q2, Q3, that format, I think it's good, and also it reduces traffic on track as well. Obviously, impeding was, it's been quite big up to now. Yesterday we actually didn't have any reports of impeding, which is a very good sign with the full qualifying format. So yeah, I think that definitely helps. Yeah.
yeah, and I want to talk about Q1 because some people did go out, and some people did use put on a set of medium tires just to kind of get some more laps on the track and kind of get a feel for how their car feels. But some people used a fresh set of softs, and then we also saw a really big hit for Walter in the final sector. Obviously, he didn't, he kind of caught up to traffic, but he took the risk by going out there. Were you surprised that more so the people who took a fresh set of softs to that, qualifying? But also, were you surprised people took the risk? Because obviously, Walter was the first guy out of qualifying, and we know he's pretty quick, and especially in qualifying. So, were you surprised that people took that risk?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what him, Ollie Freeman, Tyler, and the whole McLaren crew were discussing. But definitely, first of all, taking new set of softs is an interesting approach. Very interesting tactics. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but he did it. He DNF'd, which is a worst case scenario. Honestly, there's no need to DNF. I mean, I know it sounds silly me saying there's no need to DNF, but honestly, you don't have to push. You're going to make it into Q2 anyways because of how many drivers do we have? Like 14, 15 drivers, I think.
Yeah, we had
So
50.
yeah, 15 drivers. So you're going to make it into Q2. Just if you're going to leave the garage, this is my advice. I mean, you don't have to listen to me. I mean, I'm only a five-time world champion, so nah, I'm joking. I'm joking. I don't understand like that. But you know, why do, just take out a set of medium tires, maybe learn the track a little bit, and don't push as hard. You saw he DNF'd. He had to start from the back. He didn't even make turn one. in the race. I think Sid Kofa DNF'd as well.
Yes,
So
steering issue in qualifying, and I guess Red Bull couldn't prepare their backup car in time either.
yeah, exactly. So to be fair, with Sid Kofa, you kind of understand. If he had an issue, then that's unfortunate. But
The thing
with what?
about Kofa though is that he used 3 sets of soft tires in that qualifying. But yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of like nah, that's crazy. But yeah, just take it easy for Q1. Even if we had a full grid, Walter's quick enough. I mean, he's managed to get 2 poles this season. That's the most of anyone this season,
Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken. So don't take the risk. Just learn the track in Q1, and then Q2, Q3. That's when you can begin to put the hammer down. So yeah, that's what I'd say about that.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about, obviously we kind of went over the new changes to GCOR, so I have a few more things left. I mean, obviously we've been here for a while, so we can end it, but I do have a few more things. Obviously,
I'm
were you
enjoying.
surprised? Oh yeah, you were saying?
I'm enjoying this. Don't you worry, mate. It's fine.
And then, obviously McLaren had a big improvement over the off season. So were you surprised by some of the pace some of these teams gained over the off season?
Yeah, I mean, I was, me and Midget Matt were just discussing. I think it was back at the HQ, back at the GN7 HQ midweek, back in England. We were discussing how what's so different between last season and this season. I think I wouldn't say we've fallen, but I definitely say teams around us have improved. Like if there was a scale, teams around us have improved by 6 or 7 out of 10. We've only improved by 2 or 3, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, but McLaren, I think definitely. I wouldn't really say I'm too surprised because I know Tyler. I've known Tyler since I was a young boy. Obviously, we're good mates, and obviously he's team principal of McLaren. So he's done a brilliant job, and I think the last few seasons he's been investing more and more and more into McLaren. I think he's realized that for McLaren, it's best if he didn't race and he got you know 2 drivers to race for him, and he'd just be a team principal. Which I fully respect that decision. He's gone out of his way to become team principal only, and to get 2 quick drivers to hopefully win him and the whole McLaren team, the constructors. But they've made very good decisions. Obviously, the investment into the team has been stellar. Obviously, they've got a new HQ. Um, they've managed to get Ollie Freeman from us, which is brilliant. I mean, Ollie Freeman, as I've said, not only today but in previous interviews, he's a brilliant race driver. He's one of the best on the GCOR grid right now. He's been one of the best drivers for the last 2 seasons. Um, and now is his chance to win the championship. He's driving brilliantly. He's qualifying brilliantly. What he needs now is just the mental strength and the consistency to produce that week in, week out. McLaren, they've done a brilliant job. He's settled into McLaren so quickly. Um, and what he needs now also is a good teammate. I mean, Walter, obviously, as you may know, and as everyone may know, there's been a little bit of controversy with Walter, and relations at McLaren have broken down to the point where he's actually left McLaren. I don't know if you've seen that or not,
Oh yeah,
but
I saw.
he's left McLaren, and now they've gone with Sid Kofa. Are you surprised about that as well, Sid Kofa?
I will say this: I may or may not have gotten another opportunity to join McLaren, but I wanted to stay with Charlie. But that's all I'm gonna say. But
All right.
um, I am surprised because Sakofa, he's talented. We know that, but he seemed very committed to Red Bull this season, and also he didn't. He had all the issues in Jeddah, which I feel like would be a little less attractive for other teams, and but yeah, I was surprised. I mean, I didn't know who else they would really go with necessarily. I mean, obviously McLaren's powered by Mercedes power units, so maybe they would have gone with the GN7 driver like Skip Rat or something. But
Yeah.
obviously, I think they want more experience to help them. I mean, Skip Rat, he's definitely improved a lot, but I think they want to go with more experience to help them in their aid to get constructors. But yeah, I was surprised because Kovac seems very committed to Red Bull, so it was definitely I mean, honestly, it was shocking to me, to be honest.
And the fact that Ollie Freeman and Sid Kofa previously have had, bad blood between them. I mean, just go to the other interviews to hear what they've said about each other. You know, it's not been the best. But yeah, I mean, they've made brilliant strides forward. I'm happy to see McLaren up there. I'm happy to be battling against McLaren. They're a great team, and they're creating their history now. I mean, in GCOR, McLaren, their history is not they're not one of the biggest teams in terms of history, but I'm sure after this season they'll be definitely top five greatest teams in GCOR history. So yeah, they've done a brilliant job. Other teams such as Haas, I think, obviously in the off season they managed to get their new team principal in Charlie. I think Charlie's done a brilliant job. Again, he's invested in that team. He's got, well, he had two very good drivers in Coward and yourself, but obviously Coward, we've said, he's dipped. We've spoken
Oh,
about him. Charlie, he's still doing a brilliant job. You're doing a brilliant job. I think you're third in the standings, isn't it? Less than
oh,
10 points off the top.
oh yeah.
So
I'm 1 point behind Ollie, and then however many points behind Luigi.
yeah, so you're about, well, this is a rough estimate. You're about 6 points off the top as we
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah,
So
but
you're
since I'm a
driving.
greedy race car driver, I think back to Japan where I was ahead of Cyrax before I
Mm,
got a Ferrari came across the track wrecking and caused my front wing to come off, and then I had to pit, but my team didn't give me a new front wing, so I had to pit again. I somehow came back for 12th, but like all those 25 beautiful points, man, I was like, oh man. But
yeah,
yeah,
no, 100%. I think everyone, not only everyone in the top seven, but everyone on this season's UCR grid, we've all had our highs and lows. Obviously, my highs last race at Saudi and race one in Japan, but my lows also, that DNF at Australia. Only if I'd waited maybe even another lap to overtake Surf Absolot, maybe get a top five, 10 extra points, there I am. I'm right up there with you guys. So, but we're race drivers. We're race car drivers, man. We're always gonna say, what if this, what if that? We can only move forward, right?
oh yeah, I did a lot of that last season, but yeah, we can only move forward. I mean, there's no obviously you can dwell on it for a little bit, but don't dwell on it for too long because it's just gonna eat you up if you keep on
Yeah,
it. It's just gonna take away your focus, and then it's gonna hurt you in the now, right? So yeah,
yeah.
but obviously everything's. I was gonna touch on the Walter thing. Also, you got there first. But what would you say has been you? I mean, were you surprised by how fast Walter kind of left the organization?
Uh, sort of. I mean, Walter, he's a tricky character to figure out. I mean, he's got pace, undoubtedly. We saw that last season at Interlagos. We've seen that in qualifying this season. As I said, most pole positions of anyone this season with two out of four races, which is in GSWAT that's sensational, having a 50% pole position record up to this point. But it's just certain small aspects which make a big difference. I mean, the first thing is his aggression. I think he's he doesn't have to be so aggressive sometimes. I mean, do you remember last season at Interlagos?
Oh
He was
yeah,
very aggressive.
yeah,
He was very aggressive with you. Remember, with you and even me as well. But obviously,
yeah.
you got the worst part of it, right? Right?
Yeah, I got I had my strategy. I calculated by like how much I was gaining on you guys per lap after I pitted. I would have
Mhm.
probably come out ahead of you guys. Now, if my tire, I don't, I mean, I wouldn't, I would have pitted later, so my tires would have been better. But it would have been a battle between us. It wouldn't have been like me a few seconds off. We would have been battling right to the finish line for the title. But yeah, he lost the rear and broke my wing, so I had to pit. But yeah, that was really unfortunate. And then I was trying to overtake him. I was faster, and then he made contact with me, and I still got a podium. So, I mean, that's something. I'm pretty mad when I don't get a podium. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed when I don't get a podium. So at least I got that. But I wanted, it was just a tough weekend because the emotions are so high, especially in the championship battle. And I wanted to do
Yeah.
donuts, but I couldn't bring myself to do them because I didn't finish the job off. So it was just, yeah, it was a tough weekend.
Nah, I understand, bro. I understand, but yeah, definitely he could have, eased down a little bit on the aggression because he had that pace. And just generally his relations with McLaren. McLaren. they've never really been a happy team this season. I mean, even when they were qualifying 1-2, I'd get little snippets, little quotes from team members within McLaren, whether it be a driver, whether it be a mechanic. I'd hear something negative about one of the drivers, and obviously you can't have that type of toxicity within a race team. The race team will fall, and more often than not, the toxicity was aimed at Walter. So definitely, that hurt relations. Um, I think the fact that he was involved in so many incidents, that's the third reason. That's also another major aspect. I think miscommunication with Ollie Freeman. I think that was very, very prevalent. I think it was, where is it? I think it was Japan, where Ollie Freeman didn't want to double stack, but Walter double stacked anyways. So that kind of ruined both their races. And then
Preseason, remember they had a crash with each other too in preseason.
yeah, pre-season as well. Yeah, they got a little bit too close for comfort. So obviously team
First thing
relations
I
went
saw
wrong.
when I put my when I put sorry for cutting you off. We'll go back to that. But yeah, it was the first thing I saw when my team switched on my monitors in the garage was them crashing. I was, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, literally. And then the fifth thing was like his off track antics. I mean, he said some questionable things in the paddock, some you know offensive things here and there, which I've tried to I've tried to speak to him about, make sure that they don't happen again. But obviously that won't help your case to being liked in the GCR community. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if we'll see him again, but I guess it's called it a day for now. Dino Bambino signed him to Ferrari, but I don't even know if he's going to be racing for them. So yeah, I'm just happy I'm not Walter right now. I'll be real.
yeah. I wanted to talk about some of the rookies or maybe not necessarily rookies, but some of the newer drivers, like who've maybe been here for a season or two. We've seen a lot of some of the newer drivers tearing up a lot of cars, and some of them tearing up cars in every session, practice, or not practice, but qualifying. If there's a sprint, it would happen, and in the race, and sometimes all three or two out of three. So just what's your kind of message to those drivers who are, these cars are not cheap. So what's your message to?
Yeah, definitely not cheap, especially if I'm lucky that I raced for GN7, the biggest team in GSOR history. So I mean, we're not allowed to wreck the cars, but obviously we've got the biggest leeway, right? But anyways, my message is just to keep it on the road. I mean, if one weekend you don't feel like the car is with you, if you're maybe not as confident, just ease off the gas a little. Don't overdrive the car, because when you start overdriving the car, that's when mistakes are at the highest percentage. That's when you try too hard, that's when you can lose the rear end. That's when you can make a silly mistake, lock up a left front brake. You know. So I just say, if the car doesn't feel 100%, obviously drive your heart out, but don't overdrive. Don't go over the limit. Maybe drive slightly under it, because at the end of the day, drivers will crash. Other drivers will have mechanical issues. Other drivers will make mistakes, and if you can capitalize on those errors, you know, you may not have the pace, but you'll still manage to bag a podium. Some may call it lucky, but at the end of the day, a podium's a podium, right? Um, so yeah, definitely bring the car home. That's rule number one, and rule number two: don't put too much pressure on yourself. I think in this current era of GSOR, with it being so competitive, it's so easy to put so much pressure on yourself. If a race doesn't go your way, it's so easy to dwell on that. But the thing is, we're all human. We're all going to dwell on mistakes, but it's who can get over the mistake, who can learn from the mistake fastest, and who can move on to the next Grand Prix fastest. Those are going to be the drivers who not only improve at a faster rate, but they're also going to be the drivers who fight for the championships, fight for the race wins, and fight to become the greatest of all time.
And how hard, because some of these teams we've seen them have, even like one car will crash out in multiple sessions, but then their second car will crash out in multiple sessions. Just how hard? Obviously, GCOR we have backup cars because we don't have time between the sessions to fix the car before the race. But how hard is it for a team to go through that many cars, and how hard is it back at the factory?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I'm grateful that I drive for GN7. So it's a little bit easier for us because we've got the money to create so many more spare parts and even more spare parts when we put a young driver into the car. But for um, smaller teams such as I'd say Alpha Tauri, I know they're leading constructors right now, but they've got a history of finishing quite low down in the standings. I'd say it's very tricky for them. I think the fact that they've managed to get two drivers right now who aren't really prone to crashing. I mean, Cyrax has improved so much. Um, Obviously, he won the first race, and Luigi. I know he's a rookie, but God, he's been driving so well, man. Obviously, he's leading the championship. So they've picked, in terms of drivers, they've picked the right lineup to not smash the car. But when you're not a big team and you've got drivers smashing your car, I think it's got a toll on the cost cap. It's got a toll on mechanics. They've got to, you know, stay up late repairing the car for the next day. And obviously, as you said, we've got backup cars these days, but those backup cars, you've got to fit the setup onto the backup cars. You've got to make sure the backup cars don't have any mechanical issues. You've got to fill them up with fuel. It's just so much hassle, and
And the cars and
overall,
the backups are expensive themselves to have.
yeah, exactly. That's another point. So it's just so much hassle, and it damaged the team greatly. Mm.
Yeah, that's why Sidkofa didn't even start Jetta because the Red Bull backup car had like a bunch of issues with it. But I mean, yeah,
Mm.
and sometimes teams don't even decal up their backup car because they don't have the funding. They have to do it if only if they crash. And a lot of times these cars are unloaded without because obviously the rear wing and the main wing won't fit into the trailers we use. So it's when the teams put the cars in the garage, they'll install them there. But I mean, it's a lot of work, and to make sure you have to do your engine warm up to make sure all your systems are good and all your sensors are good. It's a
Yeah,
process.
yeah, it's a very long process. So I mean, as I said, rule number one: finish the car and don't break it. Finish the race and don't break the car. So yeah.
And obviously for
Oh,
these rookies, it's important to get laps because that's the only way they're going to get better. And if they're ending it up, in the care center or
mm,
riding on the scooter, it's those laps are important. Every single lap, every corner, every braking zone is so important for the learning of them.
yeah, exactly. I mean, now we're a little bit more privileged to have a little bit more practice time. A little bit more freedom in terms of practice. And obviously, back at the HQ, we've got the simulator now these days. But still, on track practice is that's the best way of learning. On track practice and race. Doing races. That's the ultimately the best way of improving your speed, your racecraft, your time management, your fuel management. The list goes on. Your ERS, everything. So yeah, I mean, if you're crashing out week in week out, then I can't lie, it's looking long for you, man.
Yeah, and then yeah, it's just these rookies need as much lap times as they can get. And I want to talk about two more things real quick. I think
Yeah.
yeah, the GN7 related. So first off, obviously the news is out that because obviously our teams are kind of separate entities to Formula One teams. Obviously, it's kind of a testing ground for Formula One teams.
Mm,
GCOR. Obviously, we're not the main thing because cost reasons and all that. But
yeah.
I want to talk about obviously Monster Energy is a part of GN7, but they are leaving the F1 team for Mercedes. Does that worry you at all for GN7's sponsorship with Monster?
A little bit. I mean, Monster Energy, obviously, they've been even back in the Gen 2 era, they were on my helmet, they were my sponsor. But yeah, leaving Mercedes, it's a little bit upsetting. I mean, lately I've started seeing some rumors about Monster Energy, which hurts the entity a little bit, and I do not support. But you know, it is what it is. At the end of the day, it's not about what sponsors you like or what you don't like. it's the sponsors. What matters is the sponsors which are on the car. You know, the ones that are giving the money to the teams to promote their products in front of millions of fans. And what matters for me is that I'm just driving a car which looks beautiful, a car which feels beautiful, and a car that can win. But yeah, I mean, they're going to McLaren, so I guess it is what it is. It's not really on me to talk about stuff which are happening in the sister series. You know.
And obviously, your team is closely aligned with Mercedes, like every team here. Obviously, GCOR
Yeah.
teams work out of different HQs. We have, they're smaller. They're still very nice. Obviously, the ones we work out of, but they're not as big as the F1 teams, of course.
Yeah.
But obviously, your HQ is pretty new. Obviously, I know you guys have found a lot of, you have a lot of good equipment at that HQ, which has helped you guys win championships. And McLaren, obviously, went to that new factory over the offseason, up their equipment. So, I mean, what's the importance of a good work environment for the team? Like a good factory, a nice new one with the latest technology and, just areas where they can kind of study their craft as well.
Oh, mate, it's the importance is massive. I mean, um, like you need a good simulator, the with the latest technology equipment. You need the latest wind tunnel to get the best aerodynamic upgrades. You need obviously you need like the engine side of things. You know, you need to get the best fuel for the car, and then also away from the racing, you know, you need a nice office. You need a place where the pit crews can practice their pit stops, and even the small things like a place where the mechanics can hang out. You know, where the mechanics and engineers can hang out. You know, eat food, watch races together. So having a HQ is massive, and also the museum is quite nice too. I recommend you go there. But yeah, it's massive. It's also a nice, easy place where you can gather information, gather setups, even debriefs. You know, having pre-race and post-race debriefs. Learn, you know, telling not only myself and my teammate, but the whole team what we've learned from the weekend and how we can use that to grow as well. That's very important. Um, and just having a great work environment. I mean, the GN7 work environment. It's um, first of all, there's the no blame culture. You know, whatever happens, it's not one driver's fault. It's not one mechanic's fault. You know, we win and we lose as a team. Second thing, the team comes first. You know, which is why you always see me and Matt, or me and Ollie, or back in the day, me and Genius, always giving each other a toe, or Multi 21 being enforced regularly because the team always comes first. You know, we've got I think it's like 2,000 members or something, all working on one car, on two cars, trying to get those cars to be as fast as possible. So definitely the team comes first. And, you know, as well as having the no blame culture and the team comes first culture, it's good having a relaxed culture. You know, I know that sounds kind of crazy, being a GN7 driver in a GN7 environment, but you need the environment to be kind of relaxed. If you're always stressed all the time, there's no way on earth you're going to get the best out of the drivers, the engineers, the team principal, even the fans. So yeah, definitely being relaxed is, you know, that's key too.
Yeah. And one last thing, then we've been here for a while, so one last thing. What are your goals for the remainder of the season with your team? Is it is your goal to get a win? How many a certain amount of podiums, top fives? What is your championship position? What's your goals for the rest of the season?
Um, I'll be real. We're taking it race by race. I mean, race one, like leaving race one, our goal would have been top five. Leaving race two, our goal would have been to finish the race. um, but I don't know. Definitely isn't to go for the championship. Obviously, the championship's nice and all, and I've said this. I've said we're not going to go for the championship in previous seasons, and still managed to go for it. But this year is very different. You see, um, I think our goal is just to develop as a team, to make Midget Matt feel comfortable, to you know develop this car so that next season this car can feel really good. Understand the setup a little bit better. Um, understand what me and Matt like to have in our car, setup wise, and a win would be nice. But we're just focusing on ourselves, collecting the points week in, week out. I mean, who knows? Come the end of the season, we might not have a win, but we might be in this title fight by accident. So we'll just take it week after week.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, GCOR is a long season, 12 races.
Mm. What are yours?
Preseason. What?
What are yours?
My goal?
What are
Well,
what are your aims?
well, my goal for the last like 3 seasons or 2 seasons have been to get 8 podiums in a season, and I've gotten to
Mhm.
6 the last 2, and I'm not counting sprint races because I've gotten.
All right.
I don't count. I'm kind of like actual race podiums. My goal is to get 8. So
Yeah.
yeah, my goal is to get 8 podiums this season because I've gotten 6, which isn't 6 isn't bad. That's half the races on the podium, which is not
Yeah.
bad. But
Mm.
I love my podiums. I'm very sad. If I don't get a podium after a race, I'm a little disappointed for the rest of the week. Not the whole week, but the rest of the day. And then I'm always thinking about like, well, what do I need to do better to get that one place better or whatnot. So goal is 8 podiums. Probably. I mean, the competition is so high. I mean, I want to say match my 3 wins from last season, but it's gonna be hard. So I'll probably get maybe like 2 wins this season and 8 podiums and try and fight for the championship again.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, in terms of podiums, you're up there, aren't you, in the all time records? Where are you? I can't remember how many podiums you have, but I'm pretty sure you are up there, aren't you? Like the top five, because your podiums, you've been racking them up of late. Yeah, 22 podiums. That puts you sixth on the all time list. So yeah, your podiums are pretty impressive, mate.
Yeah, man, it's been good. But yeah, hopefully. But thank you for joining today on the show, and hopefully everyone enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me, mate. Honestly, it's a pleasure, man, to always be on the show.
Yep. We'll see you guys for the next episode. Bye.
Bye.